Months earlier, Luna, the powerful black bear, had been living in the tranquil sanctuary nestled within the mountains of Montana, an area surrounded by towering pines and the sprawling wilderness. Her pregnancy had already caught the attention of the sanctuary staff, but it wasn't just her size or the typical anticipation of a bear giving birth that drew their interest. Luna was carrying an extraordinary number of cubs, something that was unheard of for an American black bear. The initial ultrasound had revealed multiple cubs, an event that in itself had been rare, drawing amazement and excitement from everyone involved. But as Dr. Mitchell, the head veterinarian of the sanctuary, reviewed the ultrasound results, an unease stirred in him. He had performed hundreds of ultrasounds on pregnant bears, but Luna's scan felt different. There was something strange about the grainy images, a quality that unsettled him. Perhaps it was the extraordinary number of cubs she was carrying, but something in his gut told him that this pregnancy might reveal more than they bargained for. Despite his concerns, he continued to focus on the obvious: 5 cubs, all likely to arrive in the next few weeks. As the crisp, golden leaves of autumn blanketed the Montana wilderness, Luna's behavior began to shift. She grew increasingly restless, moving around her enclosure with a sort of energy that wasn't typical of her massive 800-pound frame constantly on the move. It was as if she knew the day was fast approaching. Her growing discomfort was evident in the way she paced, preparing her birthing den with more urgency. The sanctuary staff, trained in monitoring all sorts of wildlife, kept a close watch, their anticipation mounting with every passing day. Dr. Mitchell, spending more hours reviewing the data than he usually would, could feel that they were on the cusp of witnessing something unprecedented. The day of the birth arrived with a sudden tension in the air, as if the entire sanctuary had held its breath overnight, waiting for Luna's labor to begin. The sun had just begun to rise, casting the first orange and pink hues across the sky, and Luna's distressed growls filled the air, signaling the beginning of the process. Dr. Mitchell gathered his team, their eyes trained on the monitors and the observation windows, hoping for a smooth and successful birth. As Luna's body heaved with the contractions, the first cub emerged, followed closely by the second, then the third, and the fourth. Each cub was a healthy, typical black bear cub, their soft fur wet and their eyes still closed as they instinctively clung to their mother. By the time the 5th cub arrived, the sanctuary staff breathed a collective sigh of relief. Everything had gone as expected. Each cub was breathing, moving, and proving themselves to be healthy. Dr. Mitchell was already preparing his preliminary notes, documenting every detail with practiced efficiency. It seemed like a typical, if extraordinary, multiple birth. He began to feel a sense of calm, thinking this might be one of the most successful and uneventful births he had ever witnessed at the sanctuary. His pen moved fluidly across the pages of his journal as he recorded the weights, the times, the vital signs, all standard, all normal. But then, something caught his eye, something he couldn't quite explain. Luna, after gently licking and cleaning her cubs, suddenly stopped. Her massive body tensed again, as if in pain, and her breathing shifted back into a familiar, laborious rhythm. Dr. Mitchell froze, his pen hovering mid-sentence. The 5 cubs, all breathing and accounted for, lay resting comfortably next to Luna, but the unmistakable contraction patterns on the monitoring equipment signaled something different. Luna wasn't done yet. The 5 cubs they had counted, the 5 cubs they had documented, all appeared healthy and settled. There should be no more cubs to deliver, but Luna's body was telling them otherwise. "This is impossible," Dr. Mitchell muttered under his breath, a wave of confusion flooding his mind. He had seen thousands of births, but this one defied everything. The thought that 5 cubs had already been born should have meant the end of the labor, but the equipment was showing otherwise. He moved closer to the observation window, his heart racing. The other team members looked at each other, perplexed. "These are full labor contractions, Dr. Mitchell," Sarah Collins, the sanctuary's lead wildlife nurse, confirmed, her voice tight with anxiety. "But that's not possible. Black bears don't give birth to 6 cubs. Dr. Mitchell, now visibly rattled, rubbed his eyes, trying to make sense of the situation. There was no precedent for this, no explanation. His mind raced through every possible scenario. Could it be a rare genetic anomaly? A misreading of the data? No. The equipment was working perfectly, and Luna's body was telling him the truth. The atmosphere in the room grew heavier as they all waited in silence, unsure of what was about to unfold next. They had seen many extraordinary things in their careers, but nothing prepared them for what was coming. And in that moment, as Luna's body tensed again, they all braced themselves for a new chapter in wildlife medicine that none of them could have foreseen. The tension in the room was palpable. Dr. Mitchell, still in shock, adjusted the camera angles, making sure to capture every second of what was about to unfold. Luna's contractions were becoming more intense, each one lasting longer than the last. The team was bracing for the unknown. They had already witnessed a rare multiple birth, but this felt different. Something deep inside Dr. Mitchell's gut told him that this moment would change everything they knew about black bears. The first 5 cubs, all typical in appearance and size, snuggled close to their mother's fur, seeking comfort as Luna continued to groom and care for them. But Luna's body was still in active labor. The team's eyes were glued to the monitors, watching as the bear's contractions continued unabated. The tension was unbearable. What came next would rewrite everything they understood about bear biology. Suddenly, a low, guttural growl filled the room. Luna's massive body shifted with forceful movements, and the room collectively held its breath. Something was about to happen that no one was prepared for. Dr. Mitchell's hands were shaking slightly as he held the camera, capturing the impossible scene in front of him. His heart was racing as he leaned forward, his eyes locked on Luna, waiting for the next moment. Then, without warning, it happened. The 6th cub emerged. The first thing Dr. Mitchell noticed was its size. It was nearly twice the size of the other cubs, its body large and muscular, a clear anomaly from the tiny, fragile newborns that had arrived moments earlier. But it wasn't just its size that shocked everyone. The cub's fur was unlike anything seen in the animal kingdom. While the others had the typical black fur of an American black bear, this cub's coat was a striking silver white, the colors shifting and shimmering as it moved. Its appearance alone was enough to make everyone in the room step back in disbelief. "This can't be real," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Luna, ever the attentive mother, seemed unfazed by the unusual appearance of her 6th cub. She moved quickly to lick it clean, her massive tongue working meticulously over its body, as if the cub was just like the others. But the room was silent, the atmosphere heavy with questions. There was no denying it. The 6th cub was different in every possible way. As Luna continued to care for the cub, Dr. Mitchell's mind raced. What were they witnessing? The cub's facial structure was unlike any bear cub he had ever seen. Its muzzle was shorter, more refined, giving it an almost otherworldly look. But what took everyone by surprise were its eyes. The cub's eyes, wide open from birth, gleamed with a strange amber hue, something that was completely unheard of in newborn bears. All other bear cubs were born blind, their eyes sealed shut for weeks, but not this one. It was as though the cub had been born with an advanced awareness that should not have been possible. Dr. Mitchell reached for his journal, his hand trembling as he scribbled down every detail. The cub's oversized paws were marked with patterns that seemed almost deliberate, with strange symbols that resembled ancient cave paintings. The medical team gasped as they inspected its paws under the lights. These were not random markings, but something deliberate, something unknown. Could this be a genetic anomaly, or was this something far beyond the realm of science? The cub's movements were far more coordinated than the others. While the 5 normal cubs stumbled around, instinctively trying to find their mother's warmth, the 6th cub moved with remarkable strength. Within moments, it made its way to Luna, its oversized paws propelling it forward as it reached for her. The moment was powerful. Nature had created something extraordinary, but what? "Dr. Mitchell, do you see this?" Sarah gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief. "It's moving like it's been alive for weeks." The cub's behavior was truly out of the ordinary. It responded to its mother with a level of coordination that shouldn't have been possible. Its movements were precise, deliberate, like a creature far older than it appeared. Dr. Mitchell's mind raced. What was this cub? How could something like this exist? His scientific understanding of bear biology was being shattered, piece by piece, before his very eyes. The other cubs, oblivious to their siblings' strangeness, huddled together, nursing and sleeping peacefully in their mother's care. Yet the 6th cub lay slightly apart, its amber eyes constantly scanning the room. It was as if it could sense the growing tension in the air. Its presence was like a riddle waiting to be solved. By now, word had already begun to spread outside the sanctuary. The news of Luna's unusual birth had leaked, and the sanctuary staff were already fielding calls from researchers, wildlife experts, and reporters. Everyone wanted answers, but Dr. Mitchell knew this discovery would require more than just a few quick answers. This was bigger than anything they had ever expected. Luna, for her part, seemed to understand the significance of her new cub. She positioned herself so that the sixth cub was protected, ensuring it was close to her and shielded from any external attention. There was a quiet, almost protective energy that emanated from her as she cared for this cub in a way that was different from her other five. She made sure to shield it from the prying eyes of the staff, and her behavior towards the cub felt almost knowing. "This changes everything," Dr. Mitchell muttered to himself, still staring through the glass. "This is unprecedented." As the days passed, the sanctuary became a hub of activity. Experts, wildlife researchers, and biologists from all over the country arrived to study the sixth cub. News outlets were camped outside, broadcasting live updates on the extraordinary event. The sight of the silver-white cub with its shimmering markings captivated not only the scientific community, but the public as well. Dr. Mitchell found himself under an immense amount of pressure. He spent countless hours in meetings, explaining the sequence of events, his voice still tinged with disbelief. No one had ever seen anything like this before. Despite the research, the hypotheses, and the tests, there were no clear answers. How could this cub, unlike any other in bear history, exist? Was it a genetic anomaly, an evolutionary leap, or something far more mysterious? Every day, the team monitored the cub closely, documenting its every move. The cub had begun to exhibit even more unusual traits, such as its remarkable intelligence. While its siblings were still awkwardly finding their footing, the sixth cub was already walking with purpose, looking around as though it could fully comprehend its surroundings. Its amber eyes tracked movements, and it even seemed to recognize the sanctuary staff, responding to them in ways that no bear cub ever had before. As the sun dipped behind the mountains and the cool Montana night fell over the sanctuary, the team continued to observe the cub's development. Luna, ever the attentive mother, continued to protect her unusual offspring, but it was clear that she was different with this cub. She made special efforts to keep it close to her and shielded it from the eyes of the staff whenever she could. Her behavior was instinctual, yet it seemed as though she was treating the sixth cub as though it were not only her child but something unique and precious. One evening, as Dr. Mitchell reviewed the footage from the last 24 hours, he noticed something unsettling. The mysterious symbols on the cub's paws, which had initially appeared faint, were now more pronounced. They almost seemed to be glowing in the dim light, pulsating as if they had a life of their own. Dr. Mitchell's hands trembled slightly as he reached for his journal, making more notes, more observations. It was during this moment of silent reflection that he received a call from one of the genetic specialists. The scientist had analyzed the cub's blood work and genetic material, and what he revealed sent shockwaves through Dr. Mitchell's system. The cub's DNA did not match any known bear species. In fact, it was not a pure American black bear at all. There were traces of an entirely different species, one that had never been seen before in wildlife. "Dr. Mitchell," the voice on the other end of the line trembled, "we found something remarkable. This cub, it's not from any bear we know. It's like it's a hybrid of multiple species, maybe even a species that has never existed before. We need more time, but the implications are..." The scientist's voice faltered. Dr. Mitchell's mind raced. A hybrid? That meant this cub's existence could rewrite the entire history of bear evolution. It was no longer just an anomaly. It was proof of a secret in nature that no one had uncovered before. Could this bear be the result of an environmental change, a mutation, or even an undiscovered ancient species? The possibilities were endless, but the truth was still far from clear. As the days turned into weeks, the sixth cub continued to amaze everyone who observed it. It grew faster than its siblings, its muscles developing at an incredible rate. At night, Luna would still position the cub away from the others, ensuring that it was kept safe. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day, and yet there was an undeniable sense that something was still wrong. Dr. Mitchell felt the weight of his responsibility bearing down on him. What would happen to the cub? Would it survive its infancy and become a symbol of evolution, or would it be a fleeting mystery, lost to time? One afternoon, as Dr. Mitchell walked past Luna's enclosure, he was struck by the sight of the 6 cubs all resting together. They looked peaceful, natural, but the 6th cub, with its strange, luminous markings and its amber eyes, was not like the others. It was still awake, its eyes scanning the room, its body tensing whenever it felt the gaze of a human fall on it. Dr. Mitchell paused in his tracks, a feeling of unease rising in his chest. Could this cub, with its extraordinary traits, be more than just a biological wonder? Was it possible that it was something else altogether? Luna continued to care for her cubs, and though the sanctuary staff were still in awe of her ability to nurture them all, they could not deny the profound sense of mystery that surrounded the 6th cub. It was something beyond their understanding, something that seemed to defy nature's rules. As the months went on, the staff continued to monitor the cubs' development closely. The world outside the sanctuary was beginning to take notice of Luna's extraordinary offspring. Researchers from every corner of the globe were eager to study it, but for Dr. Mitchell, it was no longer just a scientific curiosity. It was a symbol of the unknown, a reminder of how little humans truly understood about the world around them. One night, as he sat in his office surrounded by the chaos of scientific data, media reports, and the buzz of excitement from colleagues, Dr. Mitchell allowed himself a rare moment of quiet reflection. What would come of this cub? How would the world respond when the discovery was made public? It was clear that the scientific community was on the brink of a revelation, one that would challenge everything they knew about biology, evolution, and the animal kingdom. For now, Dr. Mitchell could only watch and wait, as the extraordinary cub and its family continued to live in the sanctuary, hidden from the world, but forever changing the way science would view nature. We invite you to share your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you found this story insightful, please subscribe and leave us a like. We would really appreciate that.